Janet Maslin of the New York Times called this movie a wonderfully mad odyssey. Washington Post critic Desson Thompson said, "This offbeat documentary-like comedy becomes geometrically funnier as it goes along." And Frederick and Marianne Broussard of Spirituality and Practice called it a hysterically funny movie about sex, marriage, and the surprises that make life worth living. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Flirting with Disaster.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters! It's time for Ruined Childhoods. My name's Dan. With me, as always, is John.
Hey!
How's it going, John?
It's going all right. No notes.
Nothing.
Things are good. I'm excited to talk about this movie. That's what's going on.
I'm excited to talk about Flirting with Disaster. And what I did actually want to mention first before we roll into it, and this kind of just came up because I just kind of cribbed that line from Wayne's World, that with me as always. Because, for me, it's...
Party on, Dan.
And with me as always is Garth. Party on, Garth. Yeah, excellent. So, John, partially based on your recommendation, because I was a little skeptical, I checked out the first few episodes of Mike Myers' show, The Pentaveret,
yeah,
on Netflix. And, you definitely have to be in the mood for the Mike Myers humor and ready for Mike
experience.
Myers. And Mike Myers, well, yeah, really, because he doesn't play every character, but plays a lot, and I'm into it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm even the cringy jokes are done well. I don't want to, not to give any away. The one that I'll give away is the one that keeps coming back in my mind that I just keep chuckling at. And it's one of his characters in it is this kind of older Canadian reporter, kind of like the on the spot, like the guy who they send to all the conventions. I mean, in this case, specifically that. But it's kind of like he's old news. And when they're showing his little segment where he's at this wildlife convention, he keeps doing all these awful puns, and he's posing with this taxidermied stag or deer, not a stag, because wouldn't make sense otherwise. But he's and he just goes, "Not tonight, dear. I've got a headache." It's so stupid, but so funny.
Another joke that I love in that show is the way that when it's in Canada, it's in standard def, and then when it goes into America, it turns into HD.
I was just telling Alicia, my wife, about that earlier. She's not as much of a comedy fan. She has been fixated on Criminal Minds recently and has been burning through that series. But I told her about that because of the scene when they actually cross the border.
Yeah.
And half of the screen is it's full screen low def, and then the other side is widescreen high def.
Yeah.
And the card, I mean, so funny. And so a lot of the jokes, a lot of the humor about Canada versus America, the swearing in America, really funny, really just kind of fun and a good time. And
they definitely let Mike Myers just do his thing.
Yeah.
And you could tell because it also co-stars rock and roll manager Shep Gordon, who, Mike Myers made a documentary about. So it's clear that it's just somebody who he respects and admires and is friends with, but is by no means a famous actor or anything.
No. And is that documentary? I wasn't sure if I was like, why do I know this? So that is a real person.
Yeah. He was Alice Cooper's talent manager. And the documentary is called Supermensch: The Legend of Shep Gordon. It was from
Oh,
2013.
yes.
Mike Myers directed it. And yeah, I watched it. It's good. You know, it's clear that like Mike Myers just really likes this guy and wanted to make a documentary about him.
Like when Alice Cooper cameoed in Wayne's World?
I have to imagine that that's probably when it started. And it's kind of cool that he formed this relationship with this this talent manager, this rock and roll manager, and over the course of the years made a documentary found him fascinating enough to make a documentary about him, and then cast him as one of the members of the Pentaveret.
Oh yeah,
the only one who he doesn't play. Well, aside from the one that they bring on. I don't want to like talk about the
No, but isn't he playing Shep?
No.
He's not?
No.
I thought that was him.
Nope.
Oh shit.
No,
it looks like Mike Myers. He looks like Mike Myers in the prosthetics.
At first I thought that it was him, and then I was like, nope, that's actually just Shep Gordon. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you can tell because as you go on in the show, you see that like he doesn't really have very many lines, and he keeps on just telling Alice Cooper stories.
Yeah, but he plays like a Mike Myers character.
Yeah, but his role is definitely a lot more subdued because it's
but
not Mike Myers.
But I didn't even
That's really funny.
Wow.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay.
The real dude. So
there we go. Anyway,
I know, and I feel like it's always appropriate for us to talk about shows and things like the Pentaveret because those are exactly the types of things that we would dream up on this show. As the Pentaveret was brought upon because of a joke from So I Married an Ex-Murderer, and all of these years later, it is just this like pseudo spin-off series from So I Married an Ex-Murderer. And it's the kind of thing that on this podcast where we talk about these movies and we think about all the ways that we would bring them back today, that is the Pentaveret is definitely one that I would probably throw out there for So I Married an Ex-Murderer. Anyway.
Yeah. I know, absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, it's good for a chuckle, and I personally
I'm glad that you're watching it. You know, it's fun. It's just
I
fun.
tried it out. You know, I was like, I have some time. Let me check it out. And I giggled my toe. Debbie Mazar is in it.
Debbie Mazar is fantastic.
Yes. And it was
also
funny because
in So I Married an Ex-Murderer.
But it was funny because like when she first came on, I was like, is that Debbie Mazar? Like, could that be Debbie Mazar? And sure it is. Yes.
Debbie Mazar.
So anyway, you want to giggle, check out the Pentaveret. If it doesn't make you giggle, okay, I'm
not
sorry.
for you. That's fine.
Yeah. All right, not for you. Not your cup of tea.
Yeah.
So
Flirting with Disaster?
Flirting with Disaster.
Yeah, so it's really funny because I think, Dan, you had mentioned to me after I brought this up with you that you had been thinking about this movie, but I was thinking about this movie because I originally was thinking that for our theme of these 2 months, May and June, that we should cover, family, not family films, but films about families, typically messed up families, in honor of Father's Day and Mother's Day. And I was originally thinking Spanking the Monkey, David O. Russell's directorial debut, but I was going to just say that to you as a joke because God, no, we are not talking about that. I mean, it's a very good movie, and especially for like a directorial debut or feature debut from David O. Russell. But for anybody who doesn't know what Spanking the Monkey is about, Jeremy Davies plays I think, college student who is taking care of his mother and ends up in a intimate relationship with her, to put it lightly.
Yeah. It's a bit of an Oedipal comedy.
But
it was very awkward.
Yeah, but it was very well received.
Well done. Yeah, and it's a movie that, if I remember correctly, premiered not at Sundance but at Slamdance.
Oh, did it premiere at Slamdance?
I'm pretty sure it was one of those that premiered at Slamdance because I watched that movie. I pursued it right after I saw Flirting with Disaster, and I saw Flirting with Disaster on VHS. It came out during the indie movie boom of the 90s.
Right.
And like where it was, the oh god, the glory days of I even hate to say it, the glory days of Miramax.
Right.
But like Harvey Weinstein aside, the studio was supporting a lot of really exciting and new artistic voices. And, so they released Flirting with Disaster. And when I saw Flirting with Disaster, I mean, there are scenes and lines in this movie that have stayed with me from my first viewing.
I wrote down a few. We can get to those in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean...
But just saying, like, I saw this movie, and then when I saw, okay, he directed a movie before this, Spanking the Monkey, and stars a young Jeremy Davies, I believe his film debut.
Oh, could have been.
Yeah. And so I checked it out, and yeah, it's just one of those weird 90s indie comedies that dares to go where most don't go.
Yeah, he was in a movie called Gun Crazy from 1992 with Drew Barrymore.
Okay.
But not a starring role, and then was in Spanking the Monkey and Nell, both in 1994, and then went on to Twister, and then would go on to Saving Private Ryan, and a movie that I'm particularly fond of called CQ, and a lot of people would know him from Lost. And yeah, he's just had like a really cool career as kind of one of those people who you see him and be like, hey, it's that guy, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, he pops up a lot. But yeah, for me, I mean, that was the first place I saw him was in Spanking the Monkey.
Pretty much everyone saw him. Yeah, fascinating film. And for anybody who is, we were talking about David O. Russell a lot. So David O. Russell, and this is just not a lot of movies, but all very distinct and all very like they share kind of a personality. And it's Spanking the Monkey, Flirting Disaster, Three Kings in 99, I Heart Huckabees in 2004, The Fighter in 2010, which is one of my favorite movies, which is, I feel like, a surprising thing about myself because it is certainly not the type of movie that I would think I would be so drawn to. But I think that I just love the style, the performances are amazing, the commitment that everybody has given to it, and just the way that a boxing and drug abuse story are like told and interwoven is fascinating. Then
really well done.
Very famously, Silver Linings Playbook in 2012, American Hustle in 2013. In 2015, there's the movie Joy, but also something called Accidental Love that he kind of Alan Smithied himself out of. I don't think with that name, but definitely used a different name because there were a lot of problems with that production. And I remember when that was going into production under a different name, and I was really excited because I love David O. Russell's films. Right. And I didn't remember hearing anything about it. I think it was called like Nailed or something like that. And then... then I guess it's been kind of released on VOD, but like nobody talks about it. But it's with I think like Jessica Biel and Jake Gyllenhaal. Right. Catherine Keener's in it. James Marsden. And then there's a new movie coming out this November, called Amsterdam. And that is with Christian Bale, a lot of the like David O. Russell players.
Yeah.
I think that, Christian Bale and Robert De Niro mostly. But Dan, listen to this cast list. We got Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, John David Washington, Rami Malek, Zoe Saldana, Robert De Niro, the aforementioned Mike Myers, get this, Timothy Olyphant, Michael Shannon, Chris Rock, Anya Taylor-Joy, Taylor Swift.
So in many ways, this is a movie that's kind of being marketed towards us. I mean, definitely you, I mean, I am a fan of all of the people, the aforementioned people. But like you said, Timothy Oliphant, and that's, I mean, you got me.
And it's a 1930s crime film, and
Yes.
I mean, I'm really excited about it. And before we get into talking about Flirting Disaster, I do want to address that as much as, and I made sure to specify that I love David O. Russell's films. David O. Russell is historically a difficult person to work with, and especially if you are a woman. There were definitely a lot of problems that came up on the set of American Hustle, and also emails that he sent to Amy Adams, who he had worked with before on The Fighter. And you do see a lot of these David O. Russell players, people that come back a lot, and one of them being Christian Bale, who was in The Fighter. I mean, is going to be starring in Amsterdam. American Hustle as well. Yeah. And Christian Bale definitely went on Amy Adams' defense and like really was outspoken against David O. Russell. And it makes me really curious about somebody like that who continues to work with a director who is problematic. And it makes me wonder, like, has there been any sort of like ironing out of things? I mean, talking about people who are in a lot of his movies, or at least more than one, we do have Lily Tomlin, who we see is in Flirting Disaster, who joins him again for I Heart Huckabees, and there's this infamous blowout between the two of them that you can find on YouTube, in which he just goes completely out of hand.
Does not treat Lily Tomlin with respect at all. And I'm not saying that in the context of like the legend Lily Tomlin. I mean, the human being does not treat a human. Yeah. So, and actually, I was going to suggest that maybe perhaps the lack of success for Joy really didn't have the success that others did. And I remember watching it. I remember it was good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I think Robert De Niro, his best acting in the last maybe real acting in the last 20 years has been in David O. Russell's movies. I thought Silver Lining Playbooks, performances across the board in that were fantastic. But I really, it was nice to see De Niro acting and not just kind of, and we'll talk about Meet the Parents, of course, today. But he just kind of, De Niro'd his way through those. And I really liked Silver Linings Playbook. Great movie.
And Robert De Niro is great in Silver Linings Playbook.
But also, I'm sorry. I'm just going to throw back in. You look at these actors who keep coming back, Christian Bale and Robert De Niro. First of all, known, first of all, they're men. Secondly, they've both worked with, and I can't think of any stories of De Niro being particularly difficult to work with, but we know Christian Bale has had his his moments. So
Terminator Salvation, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that because first of all, they're men and they're also like heavyweight actors, Russell probably doesn't fuck with them.
Well, I also do want to mention, because you talked about Joy, Jennifer Lawrence has worked with David O. Russell several times on Joy, for which she was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress. She won the Golden Globe.
She was very good.
Yeah, and also won a Teen Choice Award for Joy. But, she also worked with him on Silver Linings Playbook and
American Hustle.
And American Hustle, of course. And I just feel like the difference between somebody like Amy Adams and Jennifer Lawrence is that Jennifer Lawrence, I feel like, I don't know, like she and David O. Russell, I think, kind of speak more of the same language. And I feel like they work together probably in a way that's different from the way that like an Amy Adams or a Lily Tomlin works with somebody like Jennifer Lawrence, because, and I don't know if it's just like, her career, she does, maybe a lot of other more dramatic things, or it's something like The Hunger Games where it's a very different kind of vibe. And she's given a different type of platform in a movie like a David O. Russell movie, where it's, kind of witty and smart, and she's kind of put it in a different position there. And I wonder if that kind of makes the difference for her.
I mean, had she won 2 Oscars for his movies? One, she won for Silver Linings, right?
Silver Linings Playbook. I just want to see what all of the. There were definitely a lot of awards won for Silver Linings Playbook. So that one, she won Best Actress. That's the only Academy Award that one won. But it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Bradley Cooper.
Did she win
Supporting
something
Actor for De Niro? What's up?
Oh, yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Did she win something for American Hustle?
For American Hustle, let me just quickly.
I feel like I remember she's won like 2 Oscars.
Well, I mean, American Hustle was nominated for like pretty much everything, but nobody won. Jennifer Lawrence won. Did she win for Winter's Bone?
She was nominated for
Winter's Bone.
No, I might be remembering incorrectly, or perhaps I saw Into the Future where she wins another Academy Award. Could happen.
Yeah, you never know.
So anyway, well, apparently from what I had read, Flirting with Disaster was not free of drama because he clashed with Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
On quite a few things. So, anyway, John, why don't you? I'm interested to hear.
I want to add one more thing.
Yes.
I did have an interaction with David O. Russell when I saw an advanced screening of I Heart Huckabees when I was living in Philadelphia, and I don't remember exactly what I asked him, but because there was like a Q&A after the screening, and his response was kind of dickish. I think that it was about like Mark Wahlberg's performance, because I was really like taken by surprise by the comedic aspects of Mark Wahlberg's performance. And, I had seen Mark Wahlberg in Boogie Nights, and I think that his response was like, have you seen Three Kings? And and I don't consider Mark Wahlberg's performance in Three Kings particularly comedic, but certainly it's a strong performance. I'd say one of the performances of Mark Wahlberg's that I particularly like more than others. Three Kings is a great movie on which he had a famous clash with George Clooney. But anyway, but so I do have a personal moment where like he was a little rude to me, like dude asking question in the audience.
So this is not just hearsay. This is not just rumor and innuendo that David O. Russell is difficult and has a problem. This is like, you're here. This is primary source right here.
That's true. Right. All right. But if only I could have talked to him about Flirting with Disaster in 1996.
Yeah, and Huckabees is such a fascinating movie.
Huckabees is its own category of movie.
It really is. It really is. So maybe another time we'll get maybe
I'd
another.
Love to.
Yes. So Flirting with Disaster.
Yeah. Do you want me to synopsize?
Please do.
In an effort to help their marriage and try to finally name their baby, Mel and Nancy set off on a journey to track down Mel's biological parents. Along with them on their journey is Tina, a doctoral grad student who works with the adoption agency. Going through a host of issues of her own, Tina is also there to document the process of Mel's family reunion as part of her thesis regarding the long-term psychological effects of closed adoptions. Not too happy with this plan are Mel's parents, Pearl and Ed, two neurotic, with a capital N, New Yorkers, with a capital N-Y, especially since this plan could interfere with Ed's 60th birthday celebration. But the trip to visit Mel's mother in San Diego should be quick enough to make it work. But when they discover too late that an error has been made when looking up the adoption information, Mel, Nancy, Tina, and the nameless baby must take off to the Midwest to reconnect with his alleged father, a trucker named Fitz Boudreaux. But before they discover that Fritz is not the actual father, Mel ends up accidentally destroying a government building. Lucky for them, one of the cops who brings them in happens to be an old high school friend of Nancy's. He and his partner, both in work and in life, join the crew as they head to New Mexico to meet Mel's actual parents, the Schlichtings. On this journey, cop Tony ends up putting the moves on Nancy, but that doesn't compare to Mel and Tina's will they, won't they tryst. And as they are welcomed by the Schlichtings with open arms, Mel's biological brother Lonnie has different plans for him, of the acidic variety. But the family dinner soon turns farcical, especially once Pearl and Ed arrive, worried that something had gone wrong due to a panicked call from Mel at a strange B&B. With the family together, multiple affairs imploding, and a giant mix-up over white Ford Taurus rentals, Mel and Nancy are able to work out their problems and pick a name for their baby. That's the long and short of it. So as Mel, we have Ben Stiller. As Nancy, we have Patricia Arquette. Amazing, with a capital A, if I'm going to go ahead on that thread. Tina is played by Taya Leone. Pearl and Ed Coplin are Mary Tyler Moore and George Segal. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Chef's kiss.
God, every second of screen time they have is wonderful.
Wonderful. And they don't waste a second at all.
No.
Then we have Richard and Mary Schlichting, which is Lily Tomlin and Alan Alda. Mwah, 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 chef's kiss, amazing. And their son Lonnie is played by Glenn Fitzgerald. Mwah, amazing. And I do want to mention David Patrick Kelly as Fritz Boudreau, the best named character in all of cinema.
Who has perhaps my favorite line in the movie.
Oh, I know exactly what it is.
Yes.
So when I'm going to tee it up for you, then I'll let you say it. But when Mel explains to Fritz, who hadn't been given any type of heads up that there was going to be a visit or anything, when Mel explains that the adoption agency told Mel that Fritz is his biological father, he says,
I've dropped a lot of baby batter in my day, but I didn't write down the rest of the quote. But
I dropped a lot of baby batter in my day. This is the first son I ever met.
Yeah. Yes. David Patrick Kelly.
David Patrick Kelly, who we've talked about before, he was in Warriors. The Warriors come out and play. He is brilliant.
And before we get caught up in the brilliant performances, there's I think at least two more to acknowledge.
Oh, who did I forget?
Richard Jenkins and Josh Brolin.
Jenkins. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about them. Yes, the cops. Josh Brolin.
Tony and what was Richard Jenkins'
was it
character's
Phil?
Name? Let me look at it. But there, Richard Jenkins is such a treasure.
Richard Jenkins is great, and this is a role that I mean, you look at his career and you see just such a diverse platter of different types of roles, in which he looks the same in all of them. By the way, I was thinking about his performance from The Shape of Water. Paul, that's right. I was thinking of his performance in Shape of Water earlier, and I was just thinking about it wowed me because he was so amazing in that. And he's so good in this as Tony's partner, Josh Brolin's character. And Josh Brolin's character, Josh Brolin's character is bisexual, and the two of them are in a same-sex relationship. And, for a movie that came out in 1996, the way that they handle and speak about that relationship is very kind of matter of fact. Neither of them play it up as if they are doing a homosexual stereotype kind of vibe. There's definitely, like, from Pearl at the end when, like, she's with them, some judgment, but it's not out of character for her.
No, because she judges everybody.
Because she judges everybody. So it's not a reflection of the film's voice. It's very much her voice.
Well, and also because the topic, first of all, they're married, Paul and Tony. And,
right.
And they are pursuing adoption. They talk to Tina about adoption. So really forward thinking in that manner, but also in their treatment of Paul and Tony as a couple as a married couple who are having some have some tension in their marriage, which is kind of the
one. And so one of my, I don't remember what the line is, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I wasn't able to turn on stars to remind myself of what it was. But there's this great moment where, you know, Paul is continuously the fifth wheel on this journey, and there are these two white Ford Taurus rentals that they have when they finally get to New Mexico. And in one car is Mel and Tina, and in the other car is Tony and Nancy. And neither one of them wants Paul in the car. And he's just like, oh, should I go with illicit affair A or illicit affair
couple
B? Illicit couple number.
Well, they keep, and because they keep stopping and switching him from car to car. And I love also though that echoes that what happens on the airplane.
Right.
When the father, Paul, would you find another seat? Like,
yeah.
I also
poor Paul.
Josh Brolin on the airplane. And it's funny because so as we've mentioned in recent episodes, we have a new baby in the family recently. So the idea of having a baby in this movie, there were a lot of things that just that were a little funnier, like when Tony, Josh Brolin is on the plane and Patricia Arquette, Nancy is nursing, and he gives her nursing tips to avoid nipple soreness.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you see the way that you're holding him now, he's pulling down. If you bring him from the front, and it just
and it's also brilliant what that sets up, because he says that he used to date a midwife or a doula or something like that, and it refers to it as being a woman. So it establishes that he is bisexual, and so like it kind of puts the pieces together for you of just like okay, so this might not be an entirely innocent situation going on over here. And and
that goes in an interesting direction.
It goes in a very, very, very interesting direction. That's for sure. I'd say that's like that's where the movie crescendos for sure.
Well, yeah. But
and just to go back to poor Paul. I mentioned in the synopsis how the dinner that they have kind of goes haywire, and that's because Lonnie, who is, I guess, like a really great chef, but like really begrudgingly so.
Well, he's bitter because he has to make this special meal for Mel.
Right. Yeah.
Lonnie, would you make your quail? The special brother is coming.
Yeah, and he's like brushing this like marinade on it, which I guess is supposed to imply that is the acid or LSD, whatever it is that they're... Window pane. And but he puts it down in front of Mel, who then switches seats with Paul because Lily Tomlin's character wants her boy to sit next to her boys, which is such a perfect thing. And of course, and it's like, yeah, that's what would happen. And then
so
over
funny.
the course of eating the dinner, watching him just like on the side of the frame, eating this food is magical, and just like slowly getting more and more effed up. And then what does he say? He's like, I'm seeing colors I don't want to see. It's like, is this a musical table? He puts his head down on the table. And he plays hallucinating in such a not over the top way. Like, he figured out how to do it in a way that like really felt like he's panicking, but also like having a complete experience.
Right. And of course, this then leads to, and this is how wonderful the script is, because everything, like you said, the running joke with Paul leads to him eating the laced quail.
Yeah.
And then because up until this point, the Schlichtings, which, by the way, I don't know how many people out there grew up knowing someone with that name, but I had someone I knew from middle school.
Okay,
that was his last name, and to have it be in the movie, it was just it was like, oh, that's great. So the Schlichtings, they tell the whole story, and I don't need to give too much away, but they had to give Mel up for adoption because they were going to prison.
Yeah.
For was it for drug manufacturing?
It was for drug manufacturing.
Yeah. And so they don't know that Paul and Tony are agents until Paul is tripping and pulls his gun and badge.
Right.
And they're and on top of that, they're like, ATF. They're ATF agents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that leads to, and I love how kind of casual they are about how, like, okay, Mary's a wonderful guide.
Yeah.
And she's guiding him through the trip.
And Alan Alda. Oh,
Alan,
perfect in this role.
So great. He's so, Alan Alda just has this wonderful, like, laid back, like, just enjoying life manner that when it's disrupted by something like this, it's really funny to watch him play it. And Glenn Fitzgerald rounds out the trio wonderfully.
Right.
Yeah. And, going into the lab and everything, they have this whole family operation set up there where they're making acid.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
And another great thing that comes back there is Ronald Reagan, who we first see his image in the home of the first person.
Right. Valerie Sweeney, played by Celia Weston, who's fantastic. And so what happens with the first alleged mother, before they figure out that it is, an error, that the wrong birth date was put in or something like that, is, they walk into this house in San Diego, and it is, she's a very nice woman, but you start to see the hints, and like there's the portrait of Ronald Reagan. She gives Nancy a pendant with their, I think it's like Beauregard, like it's a Confederate general that was an ancestor, and they're thinking, oh, we'll name the baby Beauregard, we'll call, Bo Copeland, and it'll be so great and everything. And then his two, as he learns, but we figure out soon that they are not his sisters, these like two tall blonde volleyball players. I feel like that is a very David O. Russell choice.
Yeah, and one of them played by Beth at the time Ostrowski, now Beth Stern, married to Howard Stern.
It's just they're comically taller than he is. Ben Stiller, this is very early in his acting career. He's got this dark hair, and he looks, and
he has Fritz and his friend point out, a quote unquote Jewy look.
Yeah. And I love the way also that they justify why Fritz was involved and connected with the Schlichtings, because what he's saying is that he and Mary, I was just trying to see what the character's name was, but Lily Tomlin's character, Mary, that he and Mary were together, and he was in the Hells Angels at the time, and that rich people like to hang out with the Hells Angels as kind of like a status symbol, kind of like I'm cool, I'm going to hang out with the Hells Angels. And that's what I'm blanking on Richard Schlichting.
Yeah.
He hung out with her, and then they started seeing each other, got her pregnant, and then he had to bring the baby to the adoption agency, as you said, because they were going to jail. But yeah, it was so funny because they were just like, doesn't he look like that guy? The
Needle
Jew
Dick.
face. Yeah, Needle Dick. And one of the funny threads throughout this movie is that no one can pronounce Schlichting, and Schlichtling, Shit King, and then when they go to this B&B, which Mel claims he's not a B&B guy. He hates B&Bs. There's the little old lady and the cat that's always everywhere. And then of course they go to this place that's exactly that. And he's on the phone that he's not allowed to be on, and he's being rushed, and he's talking to his parents as they have the 60th birthday cake in front of them, being the over the top, parents that, the smothering parents that they are. And, it's of course like they're waiting for him to walk through the door, and then he calls
Right.
and they can't hear what he's saying because he's rushed and he's trying to be quiet because he's not supposed to be on the phone, and he says Schlichting, and they're just like shit king. Amazing.
Yeah, it's so funny, and the way, especially the way Mary Tyler Moore keeps saying it, and
Mary Tyler Moore.
so
I'd say performance of a lifetime if she wasn't Mary Tyler Moore.
I know, right? Right, but still, I mean, but also, it's kind of not the performance
she's playing way against type.
Not what we've seen from Mary Tyler Moore before.
George Siegel, that works.
Yes,
that works for him.
Yeah. Now, speaking of, that brings us to Ben Stiller, who, of course, is Ben Stiller, and not just an actor, writer, director, and this is not his first film, not by a long shot, but in looking at his filmography, I'm pretty sure this is the prototype for the Ben Stiller, like, nebbish character that he plays in Meet the Parents, Along Came Polly, Envy, Night at the Museum.
Right.
The kind of, awkward, stumbling over himself character.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure this is where we first see it.
Yeah, because before this, the things that are really notable that we would have seen him in are Reality Bites, Heavyweights, which we've covered on this show. And this is the same year as Happy Gilmore and The Cable Guy. So The Cable Guy is probably like the closest to...
Well, he directed The Cable Guy. He's in it. He plays like the Menendez
he's the
brothers.
Menendez. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But up until that, because Happy Gilmore, he plays the orderly at the home.
So good.
Tony Perkis in Heavyweights.
Mm-hmm.
In Reality Bites, he's kind of that slick, cool, like TV exec.
He's a yuppie.
I think Empire of the Sun might have been like the first thing I saw him in, where he's a POW.
Well, that was 87, his first year in film. He was in Empire of the Sun, Shoe Shine, and Hot Pursuit.
I mean, I can't speak for that, but if you see
Hot
Flirting
Pursuit's
with
the John
Disaster-
Cusack.
Yes.
And Jerry Stiller is, I think, a much bigger role in that one than Ben Stiller is.
Yeah, but when you think about that Ben Stiller character that comes up in all those other movies, this is where he was birthed. This is the cinematic debut of the Ben Stiller nebbish.
Absolutely. I mean, this movie, I think, shares a lot of qualities with what could be a Woody Allen movie. If you could easily see Woody Allen making this movie and casting himself as the main character, or these days casting somebody who would do an impression of him, basically. What's your
having
face?
Two beautiful women, except like the women would, if Woody Allen was in it, his character
Scarlett
would
Johansson,
be older, and it would be like Scarlett Johansson, like Dakota Fanning.
Yeah. So, I feel like this shares a lot of those same, there's a pacing to it that feels very Woody Allen. Certainly the neuroticism of not only the main character, but his parents, who are clearly causing him a lot of his anxiety.
I think a lot of the style of it as well, kind of a lot of the handheld movement, camera movement, similar to some of what you'd see in like Mighty Aphrodite.
Yeah. So
it definitely has that DNA to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's still very clearly, as we now know, a David O. Russell movie, whereas at the time that style was just being defined. And he's one of those directors that just like you can tell a David O. Russell movie after, just in a few minutes. It's like there's something about this.
I don't know, but I mean, like, had The Fighter been released, and had I not know. Like, I don't
There's a
know.
lot of things about the fighter that are very David O. Russell. The
Okay, I mean, I don't know.
the sisters are very David O. Russell.
Oh, yeah.
The sisters are a very David O. Russell
Yeah.
kind of vibe.
Forgot about the
I feel
sisters.
like the way that Amy Adams' character interacts with the sisters is a very David O. Russell thing. The pacing of the conversations between Melissa Leo and Christian Bale feel very David O. Russell to me.
It's been a while. I mean, I only saw it once, not because I didn't like it, but because I thought it was just like it was a really powerful film.
It's a very powerful film, yeah.
And not the type of thing that I can really go back to a lot.
You know, I think that a reason why I can go back to it is that even, you know, it's a true story, and knowing that the Christian Bale's character, Dickie, in real life, he gets better and he does, you know, fight his addiction. And that's not what this movie shows, but it does have a clip at the end with them in present day, you know, the people that the movie's based on, and showing their interactions with each other and everything. And I think that had something tragic happened to him as a result of his addiction, I don't think I'd be able to watch it as, you know, many times as I have seen it.
Yeah, no, that's excellent point.
But like the style of it and the performances are just like, ooh, they really scratch an itch for me. And especially when it's showing those, I know we're talking about a different movie, but when it's going into those fighting scenes and it has that look of those, like, I don't know, the 90s HBO boxing matches and stuff. And it's just like, oh yeah, it feels like I'm so in this right now.
Well, and that's something that David O. Russell, I think, once he started to be more of a Hollywood director and get budgets, became really good at, because he did it with Joy as well, is really not just recreating a time period,
right,
but recreating the media of that time period.
Yeah.
He does it with that. I mean, I haven't seen American Hustle since I saw it in the theater, but again, he's recreating another time period with that. And that one, I think, is definitely his, you know, very much his signature. Silver Linings Playbook was, I think, the most recent one that I felt was really kind of the type of David O. Russell film that I want to see.
Really? Would you say that over I Heart Huckabees?
As you said before, I Heart Huckabees is kind of in a category of its own. Now, I Heart Huckabees could be the most, like, could be the purest type of David O. Russell movie, because it just takes everything that he approaches in other films and he just pushes it so much further out, not just with the whole like existential mystery, but like a lot of the visuals in it, especially with like Dustin Hoffman, Lily Tomlin, the performances, Jude Law.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Is wonderful.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, you know, for our listeners, you know, Dan and I, we talk about movies all the time. That's why we have this podcast, is because if we weren't recording it, we'd still be talking about it. And I Heart Huckabees is one of those movies where we bring it up a lot, and mostly for like certain moments and certain lines in it. And you know, Jude Law's character especially, which I don't know if I could say about any other movie with Jude Law in it. There's not another movie where I'm just like, oh man, the way that Jude Law delivers that one line, oh, so good. But I Heart Huckabees, the way he says, and then Shania sings. Yeah, it's perfect. And the whole thing, the story that he tells on repeat about the tuna sandwich, and the way that is used, and I believe is Kevin Dunn one of his coworkers in that?
Oh, probably.
I know, because I just see Kevin Dunn being like, tell the Shania story, tell the Tuna story.
Yes.
And the way that is done in that movie is David O. Russell's DNA if it had to be put onto film. Like, that's the way that I see
That's
all
the
of his
vibe that
stuff.
I get.
Yeah. And, you see it in different parts of Three Kings. I feel like there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, especially when it shows like the gunshot wound to the lung and the way that that's described and everything. And when you have Spike Jonze's character and when he's talking about what he has going on back home and how, and everything like that, and Ice Cube's character and going back and flashing back to what he does. And I don't know, like, there's just so much about David O. Russell's style that works in that movie that you don't see in a lot of war movies. Like, it makes it feel so different from any other kind of war movie. And it's not just a war movie, it's a heist movie as well.
It's a treasure hunt movie. It's a heist movie.
It's so many things. And,
it's actually both of those more so than a war movie. It just happens to be set like in the
Gulf War.
The theater of war.
Right. Yeah. It's, well, I mean, technically exactly after the war. I guess, yeah.
Well, it's set against the backdrop of the is it Desert? It's yes, it's of course it's Operation Desert Storm because it came out in 2000. So I don't. What was the like? Yeah. So anyway, it's great. The casting is great. Nora Dunn is in that, right? And I think she had
Nora Dunn's amazing in that.
Nora Dunn is absolutely amazing in it. And Three Kings. I feel like those were like the real like David O. Russell movies where it was really untethered. Huckabee's more so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Huckabee's it's far from, I think it's far from perfect, but it's one of those movies that is admirable for its flaws because of the risks that it takes and that it really dares to be different. And it's great because, we talked about the when we were talking about Little Miss Sunshine, we talked about the mid 2000s Fox Searchlight indie boom, of which I Heart Huckabees.
It certainly is
part of that family there.
And I feel like if somebody said to me like, show me two movies that define like your experience of the year 2004, I'd show them I Heart Huckabees and Garden State.
Yeah, I would probably show Garden State and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah. I don't think I got into Eternal Sunshine until like a little bit later.
I saw it in the theater and it was kind of in the aftermath of a like relationship breakup that definitely like Eternal Sunshine, there were echoes of that.
Ugh.
So like it's a like beautiful and wonderful movie, but it also like
it's the kind of thing that everybody that's been in a breakup can relate to in some way. But bringing things back to Flirting with Disaster, in my notes, I have a few of the lines that I love, one of them being the baby batter line. The other two that I have on here are, there's one line from Pearl that exemplifies her character in so many ways. And the one that I have written down is, why does he have to do the roots thing? Aren't we good enough parents? Which is like, of course you think this is about you. That's the exact reason why he is having these problems, is because his adopted mother makes everything about her, and that over time creates all these like psychological effects that, makes one wonder, what is it that about me that is me, or what is it that is, nurture versus nature?
Yeah.
And the other one that I have is when Téa Leoni's character is about to light a cigarette when they're at the Schlichtings, And there's this whole thing about how, Paul's on acid, and she just goes, I guess it's just one of those ex-felon pro-acid kind of non-smoking homes.
Yes.
And it's so good.
That's a great line. I have a favorite line, and I have one of my favorite lines in that scene. It's kind of a throwaway in the whole Schlichting scene, but when Lily Tomlin is like consoling Lonnie, and she said, "I would love you even if you were Jeffrey Dahmer." And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the line or the way that she says it, but like,
Speaking
resonates.
of Lily Tomlin, the thing about this movie that has always stuck out to me, the thing that when I think first watched this movie, when this moment happened, which is at the end of the movie essentially, made me stop and say, I love this movie, is when Lily Tomlin, they're sitting around the dinner table, and at first it seems, like a normal dinner amongst people connecting and everything. And then as they get more comfortable and start talking more about their history, Lily Tomlin puts her leg up on the table in this particular way. And it is just like, I don't know.
The butterfly tattoo.
The tattoo. And it's just like the way that she does it tells you everything that you need to know about that vibe.
And that was all her.
That's of course all her.
Yeah.
And she just completely nails it. I think about that moment and I'm just like, that is Flirting with Disaster. That is this movie. Like going from, the first potential mother, Valerie Swaney, I think was her name, who is an, ultra conservative, all the way to the other end with Lily Tomlin's character. It is just outrageous the way that things unfold.
But so many moments from the beginning when Mel comes home after being at the adoption agency, which is how the film opens. Or I guess it opens with him. Yeah, it opens with him thinking about who his potential parents could be. And then he comes home and Nancy's waiting for him. They have a date. They have a scheduled sex date.
We haven't even talked about like the first 15 minutes of this movie.
No, but how funny is it that he goes through this, that he comes in and you don't realize it at first, but he's like, or wait, you don't know at first, right?
That Téa Leoni's character is there?
Right.
No,
right.
You don't.
No, it's not until like he comes out because he go like change, like do something with the baby.
Okay, so they're starting. He comes home, realizes that he missed their intimacy date, and they're about to get busy or whatever. The baby starts crying. He goes to put his pants back on, and Nancy's like, don't put your pants on to go get the baby. And he's like, you're right. And then he runs, goes to the hamper, puts on dirty pants to like go out and talk to Tina, who's there, then gets the baby, takes the pants off, then goes back into the bedroom to make it seem like he never put pants back on, which is so bizarre. And then there's a bit of a sexual encounter while he's holding the baby, which he's not comfortable with. But Nancy is like, "Nope, we're doing this."
Yeah. It's funny because that also sets up a running joke.
Yes, absolutely.
But
difficulties with oral sex.
The reveal that Tina is there, and then Tina and Téa Leoni we haven't talked about, but
we haven't even talked about Patricia Arquette.
No, but talk about amazing performances all around. Téa Leoni, who's also this insecure, neurotic. She's going through a divorce. She's getting her like degree in psychology.
It's something. It's kind of vague.
She's like going to night school and finishing her thesis. So, and then she has this line about like, oh, I'm just a 30-year-old baby hungry woman. And,
it's her character. There's so much more going on and you just learn more and more. And it's fascinating. And Téa Leoni, like, she's great. You think about other performances of hers, we talked about her in Deep Impact, and it's like, oh, so much more potential in there.
I think that was why I was like disappointed. Because I guess I was disappointed that Téa Leoni, I think this was the first thing I saw her in, that she didn't do more comedy.
Yeah.
And Patricia Arquette is just a wonderful all around. In this movie, she does so, like, you really feel for her character.
Yeah, absolutely. She, who's just like a supportive, like, rock during the entire thing, who's completely getting sidelined for her husband's, quest, while he's also getting distracted by Tina. And
she's also got, like, she's going through postpartum and like, body insecurity. And she, I mean, it feels so real. The way that her portrayal, and right down to that moment with Josh Brolin, which I don't want to. I know it's been over 25 years since this movie came out,
but the reveal is so worth it.
Some details I'm just not going to mention, but her like, you really feel for her and you really understand her in this movie. And I think that it's really, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like this script, which was written by David O. Russell, shows a lot of consideration and respect to its female characters.
That's true. Yeah.
Which,
and
I mean,
also
honestly, most of his films.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, there are some where the female is at the focus, Joy, especially. Yeah. But something that I wanted to also mention is that this is the beginning of Ben Stiller and Patricia Arquette's, professional relationship. And I know that they haven't acted with each other in much, but recently we've seen Ben Stiller directing her in Severance, which is a fantastic, fascinating show, and Escape at Dannemora, which I talk about all the time on this podcast, but it just keeps on coming up. And Patricia Arquette is incredible in both of those shows, and Ben Stiller is the executive producer and directs a lot of those as well. So it's nice to see the beginning of their professional relationship in Flirting with Disaster.
I feel like Patricia Arquette went very underappreciated until later in her career. Maybe Boyhood was what really reminded everyone how amazing she is. But you think back to Flirting with Disaster, you think further back to True Romance.
Yeah.
I could probably go on. Those are the ones that come to mind.
Before that, she was in some stuff, but nothing significant. But if you look at the, kind of the mid-career stuff, it's, she did Lost Highway, but I don't think that there were a lot of other things where she really maybe stood out so much until Boyhood. She was very active during all the rest of that time.
No, I don't think she got the roles that really... No. I mean, I remember Stigmata was a big one that she starred in, and that was just kind of a crap horror movie. But yeah, it's great to see her getting these roles. It's great to see that she's still working with Ben Stiller.
Yeah, well, I also want to mention she was in Human Nature, which is the Charlie Kaufman, Michel Gondry movie that...
Oh, with Tim Robbins.
Yeah, that didn't hit the way that the rest of, Charlie Kaufman stuff really hit.
It rode the coattails.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah, but Boyhood, for which she won the Academy Award, was just a real amazing moment for her. And, aside from, her work in film and television, she's just an outspoken activist.
Quite an advocate, yeah.
Yeah, an advocate for equal pay. And...
Well, when they did... Sorry to interrupt, John. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
When they did they did something for the 20th anniversary of Flirting with Disaster. which she couldn't attend because she was at Standing Rock. This was when the protests of the Dakota Access Pipeline, I believe it was called. And she was there, and she sent a message back and was like, "I'm sorry, I would love to be there, but I am here, and this is what I am doing, and this is why I am doing it."
Yeah.
So this is someone who's really uses her position to help stand up for people who don't have the voice that she has.
100%. Yeah.
So
she's incredible.
Hats off to Patricia Arquette for everything she's doing.
Okay.
All right. It's time.
It's time. Dan, what in the world would you do with this movie?
Oh boy. Well, other than just watch it more frequently than I have, I was thinking about the different routes and thinking about, maybe a Schlichting based prequel set in the 60s where you encounter them in a young Fritz Boudreau, which, I mean, okay, but I think what came to me most was a sequel. And, a modern day set sequel, which, we've got Lily Tomlin and Alan Alda. So, and this movie ends with the Schlichtings, I think, going to Mexico. So they're fleeing to Mexico.
Right. Yeah.
And I could see that the Schlichtings need to get back into the country. Mm-hmm. And their only way to do this is to establish that they have a child living in the country who needs their help. So of course now first it was Mel tracking them down. So they track Mel down. Mel is also faced with becoming a grandparent as Garcia Copeland, their son, is now an adult and is starting a family. So it's kind of, in Flirting with Disaster, he's seeking his roots, and this is where his roots come and find him, even though he might not want. And now he's kind of got to, now like Garcia, which maybe Garcia has not been told the full truth about his biological grandparents, and they show up, and or maybe that's even who they find. Maybe that's who they look up is that's
what I was thinking.
That baby.
Because I can imagine Mel wants nothing to do with them. But if they find Garcia, they have a better shot.
Right. And then they end up having to run in with Mel. And I mean, why not? Because Alan Alda, I think he's still working. He's still I
believe so.
Yeah, I want to say I think he's been on some episodes of Ray Donovan.
Okay.
Yep. So and Lily Tomlin, Grace and Frankie.
Sure.
So I would love to see the Schlichtings return and turn up a little turmoil for the Copelands. Sadly, Mary Tyler Moore and George Segal, pour a whole bunch out, are no longer with us. So you wouldn't have the return of their characters. But, there's a lot of different ways that you could go. I would prefer that David O. Russell is writing the script and making it, which Lily Tomlin did attend the 20th anniversary. So
interesting.
I believe they have patched things up because they were definitely on stage together for that.
Yeah, that's another thing that going back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, that I noticed about David O. Russell and the issues that he's had with particular actors is that you then see them on stage doing panel discussions together and speaking to and about each other with respect. Not that I can say that about Amy Adams, but, there's certainly it seems like he, in certain cases, can, as we, to paraphrase Stuart Smalley, make amends.
Now I just want to see a movie about David O. Russell where he goes, I want to make an amends.
Maybe it's just about David O. Russell going to anger management that's being instructed by Stuart
Smalley.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. So yeah.
Or
so
Donnie
anyway,
Smalley.
Oh, yes. Any excuse for Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah.
So, John, what's your plan? Were you thinking along the same lines?
Dan, you literally said and then shot down my exact thought, which was to have a prequel about the adventures of Fritz Boudreau and his gal Mary, and then the situation that turns up once the Hells Angels meet Richard Schlichting, and
and his own biker gang, the Shit Kings.
The Shit Kings, but I feel like Fritz Boudreau is just such an amazing character that we only just get to see a little bit of, and I bet that when he was young and wild and adventurous, he was probably a lot of fun.
Who do you think? Who would be good as a young Fritz Boudreau?
That's a great question. I mean, who is a young David Patrick Kelly? Does such a thing exist?
No one.
No one really.
I probably would have maybe 5-10 years ago. I might have said Charlie Day.
I could see Charlie Day still being able to do that. I'm thinking about David Patrick Kelly, and it's not like it needs to be a David Patrick Kelly facsimile, but I'm just thinking about his jaw and his chin, and of course you have your Chalamets who have the jaw and the chin, but I don't think that Chalamet would be good for this. Maybe for a Garcia, but not for Fritz Boudreau.
I don't know. It would be interesting to see him.
I think he's a little too scrawny to be a Fritz. I feel like
Fritz is scrawny.
Fritz is scrawny, but I feel like not in the same way that Chalamet
not a young Hells Angels.
Yeah.
Fritz Boudreau. Yeah. I guess Chalamet doesn't quite cut it. He would be a good Garcia Copeland though. You're absolutely right. I had not thought about that, but
I could see Ben Stiller and Patricia Arquette's love child being pretty Chalamet-ish.
Yeah. I agree. So I don't know who would be a good young Fritz Boudreau. How about a young who would be Mary? Who would be mid-60s, early to mid-60s Mary and Richard?
Oh man, I think that for Mary, I think I would say somebody only because I like her so much and feel like she could do anything, Jessie Buckley. Not that she looks like Lily Tomlin or anything.
No, but I think she could pull off that. I think she'd really pull off that character.
I think so too. And she's just fantastic. I think that for Richard Schlichting, I could potentially see Zach Woods.
That's who I was thinking.
Were you really thinking Zach? We've literally never said his name on this podcast before.
I think we have, maybe not in a long time, but because when you're thinking of
he's
somebody
tall and has this just way about him. And you can see him being the wealthy guy who wants to hang out with the Hells Angels.
Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting.
It would be
fascinating that you were thinking that
you
too.
read my mind. That was literally what I was thinking because
Zach Woods.
And here's how. So as we're talking about it, and I'm thinking about it before I ask it, and I'm like, who would I pick? And I'm like, who's that guy from Silicon Valley?
Oh.
And then I remembered his name. And then you said it.
Another person that I could see would be Timothy Simons.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, who is on Veep as Veep, Jonah.
Yes.
I'm thinking of tall guys mostly.
Right. Tall guys who can do comedy.
Tall guys who can do comedy.
But Timothy Simons is so funny.
But I think Zach Woods is the guy.
Yeah. I mean,
but
I'm not,
also
not
there's
shooting
just
it down.
something about the name Fritz Boudreau. What a choice. What a choice to make to name him Fritz Boudreaux. That's beautiful. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I mean,
fantastic.
a lot of the names is Valerie Swaney. There's something about that name that just like it feels good. I mean, Schlichting in general is fantastic. I don't think that Mel Coplin or Nancy or Tina, I don't think there's anything like, that stands out so much about them. But Lonnie Schlichting, like that's so great. The way that Lily Tomlin says Lonnie is it's like the sound of a bell,
Oh yeah. We would love you even if you were Jeffrey Dahmer.
So good.
His little song when he's doing the quill. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
These are the things though that like I watched this movie once and then I owned it on VHS, but
oh yeah,
I never I for some reason never like pursued like owning the movie or watching it that much again, which I don't know why, because this last viewing of it was just reminded of how wonderfully funny I found it the first time I saw it. And now this time, it struck me even more. And I
also want to give this movie credit for its economy. It moves so fast, but you still retain everything. There is not a bit of information that is wasted. The exposition does not feel like exposition. You get everything exactly the way you need to get it. And there are, everything is just exactly as it needs to be.
And I think so credit, of course, to Russell for the script and direction. And a comment that I read Roger Ebert's review at the time. And I believe it was Roger Ebert who said that he felt that most of the budget must have gone to the cast towards getting this cast. And if that's the case, I say that is smart spending, because you could not have cast this better.
Yes, but I would also say that like Ben Stiller, Patricia Arquette, and Téa Leoni, they're the ones that are in it the most. And they're not like super seasoned. This is still early career movies for them or projects for them. It's when you get to like Mary Tyler Moore and George Segal, Alan Alda, Lily Tomlin.
I think that's where
it's just that, but it's not like they're in it excessively. That it probably cost, a ton. I mean, they certainly have their fair share of screen time, but it's certainly not the whole movie. For somebody like Josh Brolin, this was not when Josh Brolin was super hot or anything.
I mean, it's 11 years after The Goonies.
It's after The Goonies, right? But you can't think about too much that he was doing during that time until you get into the 2000s and you start seeing him pop up in more and more things. I feel like he, really hit his stride after
like No Country for Old Men.
No Country for Old Men. Yeah, exactly.
Around W. He's great in that. And actually reminded me something else that I had read about it was that they were trying to cast Dick Van Dyke as to play Mary Tyler Moore's husband.
Right, which
I mean,
I think she said no to that.
Right. I think it would. Yeah. I'm glad it didn't work out. But George Segal just plays it so wonderfully. The scene where he's complaining about the cheese, and then you see in the background she's attacking him with the brie wheel.
Amazing.
So good.
Yeah. I and there was also something that I saw about Burt Reynolds being considered for this, but due to problems that he had on a set for some other movie, he was not in it. But I also definitely wanted to shout out Christopher Tellefson, who was the editor on this. And I'm not going to go into the entire filmography for Chris, but it is extensive, going back to 1986, going through 2021. So very active, maybe not an editor you've heard a ton about, But when you see the list of movies, it's just like, oh yeah. And then you think about it and you're just like, oh yeah, the editing was really good in that. And I will say, he also did edit Joy. So the collaboration did not end with Flirting with Disaster, but I believe that those are the only two projects they have done together.
All right. Wow. Yeah, such a fun movie. If you've never seen it, check it out. And it's also one of those movies that you look at and you're like, it's a good thing they had this idea and made it before things like cell phones, the advent of 23andMe and all those things that kind of would have taken a lot of the fun out of, because if he doesn't use the phone at the B&B,
I know
they don't, Pearl and George Siegel don't try to come down to New Mexico.
Yeah.
And, you got to have that old troll at the B&B.
Amazing.
You are not good B&B people. That's because we hate B&Bs. Another one that just, anytime there's talk of going to a B&B, I just want to say, we're not good B&B people.
It's so funny. It's just so funny. And it makes me smile to think about so many things about this movie. You can hear the way that we talk about it. We talk about it only with
a wonderful movie that I hope more people seek out and see.
Yeah.
Which is not something that I would say to describe the films that we're going to be talking about on the next episode.
Yeah. Well, Dan, why don't you tell us what we're going to be talking about in the next episode?
So, definitely not a underground, independent cult classic. We can take everything out except for the classic because I think you'd agree. Back to the Future is a classic.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Back to the Future. We're going to talk about Back to the Future Part 2. We're going to talk about Back to the Future Part 3.
Which means I have to watch that for the first time since it came out.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to be, all things Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So, really, really excited for that one.
Yeah. And, to our wonderful listeners, thank you for spending this time with us. And if you have any thoughts about Flirting with Disaster, the Back to the Future movies, or anything else we've talked about on this show, or just some thoughts that you have, feel free to email us, ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com. We have an entire linked tree of stuff in this episode description, including our TeePublic store. And Dan, as you are learning how to drive a big rig from Fritz Boudreau, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.